The Harley Davidson Sportster. Slow, heavy, and obsolete. These are the things they say about it. But
like any of the great things in life, this bike is worth more than the sum of its parts. Let me explain why.
to really understand this bike, we have to go back in time to when the first one was made. No, further than that. Further than that. There we go. The 1950s. The king of rock was flooding the airwaves, and a lady called Marilyn was having a wardrobe malfunction, and Harley were about to unveil their latest bike, the Sportster.
Like a streaking meteor from outer space, it's the new Sportster. Ride a Sportster, and you'll know you're riding the very best.
At the time, the American public were demanding more and more European bikes for their lighter weight, more powerful engines and reliability. The Sportster was supposed to be the answer to Harley's dwindling sales. And it worked. To date, it is Harley Davidson's best-selling motorcycle by far. It was even used by a certain man with a name that rhymes to jump over a few buses for some reason. With a stripped-back, no-frills approach, it meant owners were free to make the bike their own, and you'll struggle to find a bike with more aftermarket support than the Sportster. It's been a cafe racer, it's been a dirt bike, even a super bike, and a touring bike. That is the beauty of this motorcycle. It really is what you make it. It's an entry-level blank canvas that can be whatever you want it to be. Over its staggering 65-year production run, Harley have updated components to take advantage of modern technology, but left the underlying DNA of the bike untouched. Meaning today's Sportster is an iconic representation of the vintage Harley you can get, whilst maintaining modern must-haves like ABS, electronic fuel injection, etc, etc.
So you might be thinking now, wait, I thought this was a bike review, what's with the history lesson? And that's fair enough, but we had to go to the past there so that we can look at the present through the right lens. Now, we can discuss the pros and cons of this bike with the right frame of mind.
This thing screams old school, and like Marmite, that's either going to be a tasty revelation you love or a massive turn-off. It has some clean vintage chopper lines, a Harley staple peanut fuel tank, and a cut-down rear fender because everyone was just chopping them off anyway.
So what do you think? Does it come in black?
Yes, Bruce, it does, and absolute spades of it. Whilst most Harley fans are betrothed to the shiny chrome, this bike bucks tradition by going dark everywhere for a bike that oozes attitude and dark appeal. This is the heritage of the dark custom motif Harley brought out to combat Indian's dark horse theme, and few are going to argue that it works. The bike looks absolutely fantastic. It is nearly impossible for me to get off this thing anywhere without somebody complimenting it.
Say, that's a nice bike.
Riding a Harley Sportster feels good, and that's what the brand is all about. It doesn't feel like you're riding an imitation of a Harley, it feels like the real thing. There's plenty of rivals in the sector that do a lot of things a great deal better. It's not the fastest, it's not the lightest, it's not the most comfortable, but it is the only one that's a Harley. Don't roll your eyes, that means something more than what it sounds. This is a no-frills, no-gimmicks time machine. It's not trying to be a Harley, it is one. It might not have the power or pull of the big twins, but as we explored in the intro, it's one of the most authentic Harley bikes you can buy today. As for the ride itself, in 2015 Harley put all of its lineup through something dubbed Project Rushmore, which was an initiative to update and upgrade a lot of their bike's components. The suspension has been reloved by Showa, a beloved name in motorcycle suspension that you'll find on many Jap bikes. That's right, rednecks, part of your bike is now Japanese, and to be honest, it's the better for it. Having ridden a pre-2015 bike, I can definitely notice a difference, which is amazing, given that Showa had barely any suspension travel distance to work with just 41mm of travel in the rear and 92mm up front. The newest dual piston brake calipers come from Brembo, another giant in the automotive world. They feel a lot less wooden, given a lot more initial bite, although you still have to have some strong hands to pull in both the brake and clutch lever. I like that though, it makes the whole thing feel quite tough. The brakes themselves are not going to knock any spots off any Japanese bike, it doesn't stop on a dime at all, but they feel adequate for the modest power and speed that these bikes are built for. That last comment is going to be a bit of an overarching theme we'll see throughout this review.
This V-twin engine in the heart of the Harley Sportster is both its golden asset and its biggest downfall. They've been using this engine since the 80s.
That's a long way of saying it sounds absolutely incredible and rumbles about a lot, but doesn't make a great deal of get up and go compared to its more modern water-cooled cousins and rivals. It's clunky and it makes a lot of mechanical racket too. What torque and power there is though comes in incredibly low and hard and stays there until its low rev limit, making traffic light pulls fun and addictive, and coupled with its low first few gears, it stops the admittedly heavy bike feeling all too porky. Just know what type of bike you're on and what class you're in. You'll take most cars, but don't try racing any 600cc plus sport bike. You'll lose. Badly. But that's not what you buy one of these for. If that's what you want to do, honestly buy a Japanese bike, you will like it more. However, if you want something that puts a smile on your face at serval speeds, there's nothing quite like a bike like this. No one's smiling on a Kawasaki Ninja at 30 miles an hour. I am on my Harley. Go figure. It's also incredibly easy to upgrade your little 883 to a 1200 or a 1275 even, requiring just pistons and jugs, meaning substantial increase in power is relatively affordable and can even be supplied and completed for you at your local dealership. If you are keeping this bike for the long haul, it's almost inevitable you want more from it, so this is a great way to go. If you make something for long enough, you're going to iron out niggles and complaints and problems that pop up as the thing ages. And this bike has had going on 67 years to marinate, so build quality is fairly bulletproof. It's not unusual to see an unfettered with engine last 100,000 miles, and these bikes have started to outlive their owners. That's pretty special and not something you usually see with an entry-level bike. The one remaining and baffling issue is something called the clutch grenade, which is a curious choice Harley made to change the Iron 883 clutch due to its lower torque than the 1200. Of course, as soon as you start trying to increase the power or engine capacity, clutch goes bang. Make sure you put it on your upgrade list. The rest of the bike is very old school and therefore easy to work on. You don't need to remove any fairings or any other parts to change the oil, filter and plugs. Everything is just right there. Once you're out of your warranty period, pick up a Sportster manual and a few wrenches and get to really know your bike the way they did back in the 50s. That is half the charm after all. There's no expensive valve adjustments, no belt changes every few thousand miles, looking at you Ducati, and relatively long oil changes make running costs low and affordable for a premium brand, and everything on this bike is solid and made of metal, like its name would suggest, meaning that whilst everything feels tough, solid and long lasting, you do have to watch out for the occasional rust patches if you live in any sort of wet climate. But if you're a biker, you know that applies to any bike. You didn't buy a throwback, stripped down, flat track inspired motorcycle and expect a long list of equipment, did you? Good, because that would be pretty stupid. The Harley packs the essentials and a few modern upgrades into his vintage looking frame, and some clever stuff is hidden underneath the skin while still appearing old school. Keyless ignition simplifies the starter process and prevents scrotes from stealing the bike without the key fob. ABS on later models means you can keep the two wheels on the ground, and onboard diagnostics tell you about any problems. A built-in movement sensing alarm keeps undesirables away from your American dream machine. Aside from that, you get a speedo, a dash to show what your lights are doing, a gear and RPM gauge built into the LCD display, and that's about it. No radio, no cruise control to faff about with, no heated grips or sat navs. It's just you, an engine and two wheels. How motorcycles were meant to be. That might be too Spartan for some of you, and if you are used to driver aids, ride modes and a sat-nav display, you'll feel very naked here, but I love the lack of distraction. When I'm riding alone, I'm riding back in the 80s when life was simpler. By now, you're probably realizing this is less of a review and more of a Harley Sportster love letter, and you know what? It's earned that. Few bikes have the staying power this little machine has, stubbornly forcing its way through the decades despite being outpaced and outgunned by its rivals. You've got to give it credit for that, and if you took all the Harley Davidson branding off, everyone who lays eyes on it would still be able to tell you who made it.
Now, like I said in the intro, there's something more magical about these bikes and other Harleys, to be fair, that mean that they're worth more than the sum of their parts. And that just gives birth to an iconic phrase. If I have to explain, then you wouldn't understand.